Now, as Russia recovers from Wagner's short rebellion, there is a new focus on the rise of private armies. They have been used in many conflicts around the world. But the bigger question that arises here is, how much of a threat are they to the global world order? And can they be stopped? To talk more on this, we have with us Professor James Russell, Associate Professor, Department of National Security Affairs, Naval Postgraduate School of Monterrey. Thank you so much for joining us on WION, Mr. Russell. Right. Now, Mr. Russell, the mutiny by Russia's Wagner group has rather brought to the spotlight the shadowy work of private armies. For starters, tell us about the purpose and the aim of such private military groups in the world.
Well, private military groups are a feature of the international system, whether we like it or not. And they provide a wide array of services for paying customers. They are protecting oil fields, they are protecting mining operations, they are providing diplomatic security, they're providing embassy security, they're providing convoy security. In other words, there's just a wide range of services that these companies and companies from all over the world are providing to paying customers. Those customers can be governments and they can be companies. And they've been with us since the dawn of time.
Absolutely, Mr. Russell. You speak of how they are deployed in various sectors, be it the government or the armies. But talk to us about how much of a threat are they in today's time?
Well, I think that here we see in the news, and you mentioned at the outset the Wagner Group. So the Wagner Group is connected. It's a criminal organization that is connected to a government that is run like a criminal enterprise. Vladimir Putin's government in Russia is run like a criminal enterprise. And the Wagner Group is an example of an organization that engages in criminal behavior. If you look around the world where they have been involved in places like the Central African Republic and Mali and Syria, in these places, they've committed atrocities. And I don't think there's any way to say that they haven't. What I would say is that that not all of these private security contractors operate in this way. Wagner is just a particular, sort of entity in this wider constellation of groups. I recall, for example, in my own case, I was out in Afghanistan in 2010, 2012, and I went on to one of the American bases around Kandahar, and I walked onto the base, and it was obvious that the people providing the manning the sort of security around the ramparts, so to speak, were not American soldiers. And I asked somebody, and they said, "Oh, well, they're the contractors." And so the point is that it's relatively common, regrettably so, but it is relatively common for countries to be drawing upon the expertise of these individuals to do services like this in places where their militaries are deployed. The case of the Wagner Group is something a little bit different in that it is operating as an arm of the Russian government and is, it's out there destabilizing places, making a mess, wherever they go. It's horrific, the things that they are doing. And they are attracting in the war in Ukraine. They've been attracting murderers and people coming out of jails, and this is it's awful what they're doing and what they're getting away with, I might add too.
Absolutely, Mr. Russell. Just to add to that, a latest report has just revealed that Prigozhin had rather deployed 3 convicts of the Russian army in his Wagner group as well. But like you mentioned them as contractors. Just to add to that, in terms of these mercenaries, it is a fickle business. I mean, you pay the money to get the right kind of troops that you want, but it will come back to bite you if you haven't paid enough. And we've seen exactly this happening in Russia.
No, this is absolutely the case and we all, those of us who follow these sorts of things, have been following this very bizarre a series of communications, over the internet between Wagner's leader actively criticizing the Russian military leadership, and this is in a state where you can be thrown in jail for so much as sneezing in the direction of the leadership, and so this is clearly a case in which the armed group turned its guns on its employer, and it's highly unusual. And I think all of us were surprised at the outcome, that basically the Wagner group and its leadership were able to sashay off to Belarus without punishment. And there are numerous other Russians, of course, who maybe picked up a sign of protest in Red Square, and they've got picked up by the secret police and haven't been seen since. I mean, so you go figure this out. I think it's kind of astonishing, this whole turn of events, in which Wagner obviously was exercising a great deal of influence and power in the way the war in the Ukraine was being conducted. And press reports indicate they played a very important role in the fighting around Bakhmut, for example. And Putin has to know this. So this is a very, sort of highly unusual situation vis-a-vis, I would say, the sort of general approach of many private security contractors around the world that have been, providing services to militaries, governments, and companies, for a long time.
Absolutely, Mr. Russell. You mentioned that you have taken part in the war in Afghanistan. So my last question to you, how problematic and dangerous are these mercenaries, these private militaries for the civilian population, especially when they are involved in a conflict?
Well, I think that the sort of idea, in the case of the United States, we try, of course, I think the government tries to make sure that the contractors are not directly engaged in the fighting. They're providing, for example, in the celebrated, and it was a bad incident, a bad thing, when we saw the head of the Coalition Provisional Authority, Paul Bremer, wandering around in Iraq surrounded by these Blackwater security guards. It presented an absolutely terrible optic. The point is that they were providing security for leadership personnel. They weren't actually out there conducting military operations. So in the case of the Wagner Group, of course, that's not the case. They are out there conducting operations, and they are a danger to the places in which they are conducting those operations. There have been terrible reports about massacres, for example, in northern Mali, which has been the site of a lot of insurgent activity. Burkina Faso, the Central African Republic, they've left a trail of death and destruction, in these places, and this is not a good thing under any circumstances.
Absolutely,
right?
Mr. Russell. Thank you so much for joining us on WION and sharing your insights with us on this. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.